Good morning all of you. In today's session of class 9 chemistry, we are going to do one topic, crystals and crystallization. So basically what happens is that suppose you take a saturated solution, okay, you take a saturated solution of copper sulfate, right? Suppose you take a saturated solution of copper sulfate, and suppose you take the saturated solution at a warm temperature of 80 degree, right? Saturated solution of copper sulfate at 80 degree. Then what you do is that after you have got a saturated solution, you filter it and cool the residue, right? So I'll repeat again, you take a saturated solution of copper sulfate at 80 degrees, so that's a pretty high temperature. You filter it, you will obviously get a residue, you cool the residue, right? When you cool the residue, then after you cool the residue, it will take time. So let's say you cool the residue for 1 day, so after 1 day, you will get crystals of copper sulfate. So you filter it, you cool the residue for 1 day. So after 1 day, you will get crystals of copper sulfate. So now the thing is, you take this crystal and you suspend it into saturated copper sulfate, right? So you take this crystal and suspend it in saturated copper sulfate. So you will find that the crystal will grow in size, okay? So the crystal will grow in size, and that growth in size will be because the crystal will get hydrated. It will become copper sulfate dot 5H2O, right? So initially what you did, copper sulfate is a powdery substance, it's an anhydrous substance. You initially took copper sulfate and made a saturated solution at 80 degree. After that, what you did, you filtered it. After filtering it, you got some residue. You cooled the residue for 1 day. After 1 day, you will find that you will get some crystals, needle-shaped crystals of copper sulfate. So you take those crystals and suspend it into a saturated solution of copper sulfate. So these crystals will grow in size, and that growth in size will be because these crystals are getting hydrated, and copper sulfate dot 5H2 is the formula. So when you started off, you took powdery form of copper sulfate and made a solution. Later on, when you ended, you got crystalline copper sulfate CuSO4 dot 5H2O. Now this 5H2O, it has to be understood, it is water molecule which is inside the crystal. It is inherent to the crystal, it is intrinsic to the crystal. And this 5H2O is also called water of crystallization. So this has to be understood very clearly, that the water of crystallization is inherent or intrinsic to the crystal, right? It is there in the crystal. So CuSO4 dot 5H2O is the formula of so you can also call this as hydrated, okay, hydrated copper sulfate, because it has water of crystallization, and this as opposed to this, which was like we just took CuSO4 in powdery form and put it. So this is called anhydrous. So you put anhydrous CuSO4, create a saturated solution at a high temperature, filter it, cool it, get the crystal, suspend it in saturated solution, and you will get hydrated crystals. And this 5H2 is intrinsic to the copper sulfate molecule, and it is known as water of crystallization, right? So I am writing down some examples over here. The first example is washing soda, Na2CO3.10H2O. Second is Epsom salt, MgSO4.7H2O. The third is potash alum. A2SO4.An2SO4 whole thrice dot 24H2O. Then you have Glauber's salt. Glauber's salt is Na2SO4.10H2O. Then you have blue vitriol, CuSO4.5H2O. Then you have plaster of Paris, CaSO4.half H2O. Then you have white vitriol, ZnSO4.7H2O, and then you have gypsum. Gypsum is CaSO4.2H2O, right? Okay, now listen carefully, all of you. Your homework is that you will have to write the actual chemical name. This is the commercial name. Commercially, this is called potash alum, this is called Epsom salt. You will have to write the chemical name of each of these. That is your homework. For example, this compound, the chemical name is copper sulfate pentahydrate, because it has got 5 molecules of H2O. So copper sulfate pentahydrate. So your homework is that you will have to beside each compound, like I have written the commercial name on the left. So on the right side of the compound, you will have to write the chemical name. So for example, this is copper sulfate pentahydrate. So like that, the remaining compounds, you will have to write the chemical name. The commercial name I have written here. That is your homework, and you can submit your homework as always by 9 p.m. tomorrow. That's it for this session. I'll end the session. Bye all of you.